I woke up this morning and I remembered I have free will. I've been wanting to move my TikTok content onto YouTube and make long form content for ages now. And I thought, what better way to start than to delve into the Marauders lore? I feel like you're here for one of two reasons, because A, like me, you love the Marauders already and just want to watch me resolve into a puddle on the floor as I try to explain everything from start to finish. Or, like most of my friends and relatives, you have no fucking idea what's going on and are sick and tired of hearing your friends yap about something you don't understand. And if that's you, that's fine, because this video is going to be all you need to understand the brain rot that is Marauders Lore. Considering the entirety of the canon Marauders Lore is like one chapter in Prisoner of Azkaban, a couple of lines in Order of the Phoenix, and a half-finished Pottermore article, you might be asking how we got here. Trust me, I ask myself the same question every day. And that's what I'm going to try and explain in this video. If we have so little canon content, why am I crying myself to sleep at night listening to a Spotify playlist called When Your Lover's a Werewolf and Your Best Friend Dies in War? I don't know how we got here. I really don't. Today we're going to basically do a breakdown of everything. The canon, the fanon, the chaos, everything in between. So strap the fuck in. Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban was published in 1999 and The Goblet of Fire followed in the year 2000. And then Order of the Phoenix wasn't published until 3 years later in 2003. And that gap between Goblet of Fire and Order of the Phoenix is where us Marauders fandom exploded. I feel like it's really easy when you're a new gen Harry Potter or Marauders fan, when you're consuming the media so back to back to back. When I started reading the books, they'd all been published. When I watched the films, they'd all already been released. So I was able to consume the media back to back to back to back. And when doing that, I think it's easy to find flaws or plot holes or anything along those lines. You don't have as much time to sit and like ruminate with what you're consuming. When you've got a 3-year gap between Goblet of Fire and The Order of the Phoenix, the fans have no choice but to fill in those gaps themselves, to pull apart every sentence they've read, because they've got to wait 3 years before they get new content. So it is absolutely no shock that the Marauders fandom became what it did in that time. There was one line in, I think, Goblet of Fire where someone tells Sirius to lie low at Lupin's, and I have read so many early fanfics where that line literally acts as the pinnacle of Wolfstar. You've got to applaud the Marauders fandom. You've got to be able to applaud us for taking one singular line like that and making it our entire personality and writing fanfics longer than the Bible, based on a couple of lines. We're nothing if not creative. So yeah, the Marauders fandom, I would say, probably birthed itself out of The Prisoner of Azkaban in like the very early 2000s. This was like pre-Snape Wives. If you guys don't know Snape Wives, get to know. I'll link a video below because I watched a very enlightening video. Not enlightening like I want to be a Snape. I'm going to stop talking. Just get to know Snape Wives. Anyway, I feel like we need to get into the core 4 of the Marauders. James Potter, Sirius Black, Remus Lupin, and Peter Pettigrew. We are nowhere without these 4 boys. The Marauders era itself is the generation that exists pre-Golden Trio, Harry Potter, Hermione Granger, Ron Weasley. It's the parents and the generation above them. The Marauders themselves are the 4 boys. James Potter is obviously the father of Harry Potter and is typically fan cast as Aaron Taylor-Johnson. If you're scrolling on your For You page and you're seeing a video of Aaron Taylor-Johnson, you are gonna find a Marauders fan in that comment section. He is the child of Euphemia and Fleamont Potter and is a pureblood wizard who is typically seen as like the golden boy of the Marauders era group. It is James Potter who has the ego the size of a lake but a heart to match. And I think that line follows him through very well in a lot of fanfics. He is very egotistical and yet wins everybody over in the end. In more recent years, there has been a general headcanon that James Potter has been reclaimed as a Desi character. So if you're ever seeing like fan art or fan casts of him and he is not white, I think there is a sense of like reclaiming some of what JKR robbed us of when there was literally no inclusion in the original Harry Potter books and characters. And so people have reclaimed that like sense of inclusion that was missing. And that has manifested itself in a brown James Potter. And I'm so here for it. Then we have Remus John Lupin, the son of Hope and Lyle Lupin, Hope being a muggle born and Lyle being a wizard, making Remus the only marauder that is a half-blood. I think the crucial piece of information you need to know about Remus John Lupin is that he is a werewolf. I feel like if you don't already know that piece of information, why are you here? But also this is a safe space to learn, guys, but come on now. He was bitten by Greyback age 4 and basically has been a werewolf ever since. Typically, Remus Lupin is fan cast as Andrew Garfield. Like, I just feel like there could not be a more perfect casting. Most of the clips that you see on TikTok edits are from Andrew Garfield in Never Let Me Go. Go and watch that right now. We then have Peter Pettigrew. Peter Pettigrew has quite a few fan casts. I've seen Jeremy Dozer a lot, Dane DeHaan a lot, and also Cooper Hoffman. There seems to be like a general like consensus that it's one of these three boys, but we don't get as much on the background of Peter Pettigrew. And I think this is one of the biggest disparities between the Marauders fandom and the Harry Potter fandom. And that is the way that we view Peter Pettigrew. To the Marauders, he's just a baby. He's just a baby. He didn't do nothing wrong. Obviously, canonically, he's a terrible person and a traitor. However, there are very few widely recognized Marauders fanfics where Peter is the traitor, because so much of the Marauders fandom focuses itself on the boys rather than on the wizarding world. Then our final Marauder is Sirius Orion Black, son of Orion and Walburga Black. Unlike all the other Marauders who are only children, Sirius Black is the only Marauder that canonically has a sibling, Regulus Black. They come from extreme pure blood lineage. Their family believe in pure blood supremacy, and this is usually used as like fodder and ammunition for why Sirius Black is the way he is, why he's so rebellious, why he acts out so much, because he's trying to go against the pure blood ideals of his family. Regulus, his little brother, on the other hand, is more the child that they always wanted. He behaves in the way that their parents expect and is nowhere near as rebellious or outgoing as Sirius. However, we will get into the Regulus Black lore momentarily. Give me time. Beyond Remus being a werewolf, the key piece of information that you need to know is that canonically, James, Peter, and Sirius are all animagi, meaning that they are part human, part animal, voluntarily. When finding out about Remus's lycanthropy, the boys know that other animals are safe from Remus when he transforms into a werewolf. And so in order to help him through his transformations, they decide to train to be able to transform into animals so that they can help Remus during his transformations. And this is the origin of their names and what appears on the Marauders map. Peter's animagi is a rat, hence Wormtail. Sirius's animagi is a dog, hence Padfoot. And James's animagi is a stag, hence Prongs. And then obviously Remus gets the name Moony because he is a werewolf that transforms during the full moon. And thus we have Messrs Moony, Wormtail, Padfoot, and Prongs. This is all we really have of them canonically as young boys, other than the fact that we know that they bullied Snape. I use that in quotation marks.
Oh, that sounded really bratty!
You decide where you lie with that. We know that James Potter falls in love with Lily Evans, they get married, and they have baby Harry. As they grow up, there is a wizarding war. Voldemort wants to take over and wants to eradicate anyone that is not pure blood. Do I have time to get into JKR's politics today? No, not really. That's a whole separate video. The wizarding war is in full swing. And in order to protect baby Harry, James and Lily go into hiding. And they pick a secret keeper, somebody that is the only person that knows where they are. The secret keeper being Sirius Black. However, Sirius Black was led to believe that somebody was a spy. And so he didn't think it was safe enough for him to be secret keeper and then passed that role onto Peter Pettigrew. Peter Pettigrew then became the secret keeper of the location of where the Potters were staying and betrayed them, selling this information to Voldemort. On Halloween 1981, Voldemort finds James and Lily and kills them both as they try and protect Harry. This is when Harry defeats Voldemort. So James and Lily are dead, and in order to cover himself, Peter Pettigrew frames Sirius for his murder. He chops off a single finger and leaves it in the street and then goes into hiding. Sirius, thought to have then killed Peter Pettigrew, leaving only his finger, is sent to Azkaban for 12 years. And that leaves us only with Remus Lupin, who is led to believe that James and Lily are dead, Peter Pettigrew is also dead, and Sirius, his best friend, betrayed them all. And Remus is left for 12 years, alone, to live out the full moons, betrayed and heartbroken. Do you understand why we're all so sad now? Because that's canon. All of that is canonically what's happened. So we just ran with that. As a Marauders fandom, you can imagine the absolute agony and pain of thinking about Remus Lupin at that point in time. So usually, the discussion of the Marauders themselves are when they're young. A lot of fanfics center around their young life, their pre-war life, and also a lot of fanfics center around them in alternate universes in non-magical settings. One of the most popular being the Cadence of Part-Time Poets, where it is the boys and all of their friends in a muggle boarding school and the Wizarding World doesn't exist or isn't mentioned. When looking at Marauders edits or Marauders fanfics, you are going to see a lot of the same repetitive characters beyond the four main boys. And funnily enough, most of them are actually canon. Along with the four main boys, you have the four main girls: Lily Evans, Dorcas Meadows, Marlene McKinnon, and Mary MacDonald, all of which are mentioned in the books. Beyond that, there's then canon characters like Alice Fortescue and Frank Longbottom, who are Neville's parents, obviously Severus Snape, Barty Crouch, Evan Rossier, Gilderoy Lockhart, and Regulus Black. These are usually repetitive characters that you will find in Marauders fanfiction. You also might see the poppings up of Sybil Trelawney, Rita Skeeter, Lucius Narcissa, Bellatrix, Andromeda, etc., etc., etc. It's the teachers of the Golden Trio and their parents. And what is any fandom without some earth-shattering, unrequited love and romance? Because the entire Marauders fandom is built on the ships and the romance. The main one being Wolfstar, Wolf being Remus Lupin, and Star being Sirius Black, who is named after the dog Star. As I said, Wolfstar was born from literally a couple of lines that occurred in the book. Lying low at Lupin's being one of them. Most of the Prisoner of Azkaban being the other. And the pure fact that Gary Oldman and David Thewlis thought that they were playing lovers. They were under the impression they were playing lovers. There is no denying the homoerotic undertones of Sirius Black and Remus Lupin, even canonically. And the fandom have run with that. And Wolfstar is now, what I would argue, the central ship of the Marauders universe. Obviously, canonically, we have Gilly, James Potter, and Lily Evans, the parents of Harry Potter, which is another major ship. However, the one thing about the Marauders fandom is we love delusion. And we love to double ship. So as much as I stand Gilly and I stand James and Lily, you best believe that I'm also a proud supporter of one of the other biggest James ships, James and Regulus. Look, I know, it's fucking delusional. I've never claimed to be sane. I've never claimed to make any sense. I don't even know where Jegulus came from. But it was born, it's here, and it's here to fucking stay. The main fan cast for Regulus Black is usually Timothée Chalamet. So any Timothée Chalamet, Aaron Taylor-Johnson TikToks, that's a Jegulus TikTok. Click favourite, let it infiltrate your For You page. You'll thank me later. And look, I have to say, as a fully fledged Marauders fan, I love a good ship. I love a bit of delusion. I love a little bit of funny, freaky fun. But the ships are getting out of hand, people. They are getting out of hand. I saw a TikTok the other day that literally contextualized exactly what it feels like to be in the Marauders fandom. Hold on, let me get it for you. Let me get this shit up. It says, when they ask you what your favourite Marauders trope is, but it's actually Gilderoy looking at Peter, Peter looking at Evan, Evan looking at Barty, Barty looking at Regulus, Regulus looking at James, James looking at Lily, Lily looking at Pandora, Pandora looking at Xenophilius, Xenophilius looking at Sybil, Sybil looking at Dorcas, Dorcas looking at Marlene, Marlene looking at Mary, Mary looking at Sirius, Sirius looking at Remus, and Remus looking at Grant. Look, I never said we were mentally stable. I never claimed to be. But that is out of hand. That is insanity. Would I read that fanfic though? Yeah, of course I fucking would. Can someone write that? There's a common understanding that Barty Crouch, Evan Rossier, Severus Snape, and Regulus Black are all like a little clique. And you will often find that Evan and Barty are shipped together, sometimes with Peter thrown into the mix. I don't know. I look like I was doing like Cub Scouts there. I don't know why, where, how, who, what. But it kind of works. There's a girl that I fucking love on TikTok. I think her name's Isabella. She makes the funniest fucking Marauders videos. And she's started this bit going. She uses Caleb Heron sounds as like Peter Pettigrew sounds, which I think go together so perfectly. And she started this bit between Peter and Gilderoy that is now like become fanon in the Marauders TikTok universe. And it's so funny. Like, if there's one thing about us, we will take anything and run with it. We were given so little by JKR that we literally have to resort to strangers on the internet making up shit for us. At the end of that TikTok that I just read, you might be thinking, who's Grant? You never mentioned a Grant. You're right, I didn't. And that's because Grant doesn't fucking exist. Grant is an original character from probably one of the most popular Marauders fanfics, All the Young Dudes. Obviously, the title being based on a song by Mott the Hoople, originally written by David Bowie. All the Young Dudes is a Bible-long fic. I actually think it is longer than the Bible, and it basically is canonically aligned with the books and the movies, apart from Wolfstar. It basically is the Harry Potter books, but for the Marauders. It tells us their time at school, the way they lived, and the way they lived leading up to the Wizarding War. However, obviously has the inclusion of Wolfstar, Remus, and Sirius. There seems to be this common theme with Wolfstar fanfics, especially like long fanfics. It happens in All the Young Dudes. It happens in the Cadence of Part-Time Poets. It has happened more times than I can count, where Sirius and Remus will pine for each other from the moment they meet until they're probably about 15, 16, and then they'll kiss, usually on one of the other's birthdays. It will be the most earth-shatteringly painful, slow burn moment that finally comes to a head. They'll kiss, look at each other and go, we're still friends, right? And then you have to watch them pine and yearn for another 2 years, and it's actually insane. It's actual insanity. And I eat it up every single fucking time. All the Young Dudes is a masterpiece. It's beautiful. It's the pinnacle of Marauders TikTok, of Marauders fandom, of this new age, new Gen Z Marauders fans. And it introduces one of the fans' favourites, OC, original characters, Grant Chapman. Because it is still a canonically correct fic, James and Lily still die, Peter dies, and Sirius is framed and goes to Azkaban. And in the process of this, Remus is left alone for 12 years. But that's not really fun to read about. Thus, the introduction of Grant Chapman, Remus's muggle boyfriend. Grant will always be famous to me. I love this man so much. Does he exist? No. Is he real? No. Do I have real emotional feelings for him? Yes. Grant is probably one of the most common and popular OCs that you'll see on Marauders TikTok. He exists as a way to give Remus some hope and some respite from the pain that is caused by Voldemort and by Peter and by the Wizarding War. But Sirius does come out of Azkaban eventually. And Grant does leave. But if you want to actually know All the Young Dudes lore, the best way for me, like, go and read it. Honestly, it will kill you. It will rip you to shreds, but go and read it. The best way that you are going to grapple with the sheer pain of Marauders lore is by reading All the Young Dudes. It is a good base layer. It's a good starting point. Trust me, we can add a bit of spice, we can add a bit of kick later, but All the Young Dudes is a great place to start. There are some other popular OCs that you might see sprinkled through Marauders TikTok, one of them being Lottie Pettigrew, Peter's twin sister in the fic The Cadence of Part-Time Poets. Lottie Pettigrew will always be fucking famous to me. She is more developed as a character than Peter is in All the Young Dudes itself. Like, I'm sorry, that is one thing that I criticize All the Young Dudes for. I personally don't like its development of Peter Pettigrew. I think he's a very nothing character because we know what's going to happen. Obviously, in other fics where he isn't the betrayer and we're not focused on a Wizarding War, Peter has the opportunity to develop, to have a family where we can actually get insight into his life. And one of the great ways that the Cadence of Part-Time Poets does that is through the inclusion of Lottie Pettigrew. Lottie, you will always be famous. The Cadence of Part-Time Poets also introduces two very gut-wrenching characters, Tommy Armstrong and Tonya. The Cadence of Part-Time Poets is essentially an AU fic where Remus, as punishment, is sent to Hawking's boarding school. The punishment is because he's a bit off the rails and spends a lot of his time hanging out with a drug gang in the east of London. The leader of this drug gang is Tommy Armstrong and his girlfriend is Tonya. Both of them sort of exist as a way for Remus to discover his bisexuality without him even realizing it. And both of them exist in a weird, twisted way as his first loves. For me, the Cadence of Part-Time Poets is so superior to all the young dudes. I don't know if that's controversial to say, but it will always be special to me. It is so beautifully written. Some of the best literature that I have ever consumed has happened through AO3, which is so insane to say, but also like, we're on a floating rock. Let me consume the media I want to consume. If you don't want Jilly Wolfstar scented fix, Jegulus is the way to go. If you're looking for Jegulus fix, some really popular ones are Crimson Rivers, Art Heist Baby. If you ever see people talking about red and green on Marauders TikTok, that is also a Jegulus reference from Art Heist Baby, which is an AU where basically the Marauders gang get together and pull off an art heist. We do get quite a lot of information about Regulus Black canonically in the books and the films. We know that he was a Death Eater, that he worked for Lord Voldemort, and then last minute basically decided he didn't want that life anymore and went and tried to destroy the locket and drowned in the process. This sort of like last minute redemption arc is something that I feel like Golden Trio fans craved with someone like Draco Malfoy, and we just didn't get it in the same way. And because of this, Regulus Black is usually seen as like an underdog character that we've reclaimed as the bad boy turned good, the redemption that we craved with Draco that we just didn't get. And because of that, Regulus is normally quite a tortured, horrible piece of shit that just needs a little love. I can change him. He's just dark and mysterious. Don't let Jegulus fix fool you. They are the most earth-shattering of all. They often have the most painful endings of all, because what would be the Marauders fandom if not gut-wrenching, unrequited, painful love? Beyond Wolfstar, Jilly, and Jegulus, one of the other most common like ships that you'll find is Marlene and Dorcas. Marlene McKinnon and Dorcas Meadows are two of like the main girls that you'll find in the friendship groups in most fanfics. Usually Marlene McKinnon, my girl, is fan casted as Sophie Thatcher, and they use a lot of like Yellow Jackets clips. Yeah, so normally we have Darlene, Jilly, Jegulus, and Wolfstar, and these are like the four main fics that I find things center around. However, when James is off with Regulus, what do we do with Lily? But ship her with Pandora? Look, I don't know. I told you, these ships are getting out of hand. I found a list on Reddit of all like the most popular current Marauders ships. I feel like we should digest them together. We've got Jilly, obviously. We've got Wolfstar, Prongsfoot, which is James and Sirius. And if you are someone that actually is willingly going to write a James X Sirius fanfic or consume a James X Sirius fanfic, I actually think you need serious help. Because what about James and Sirius's relationship makes you think, yeah, do you know what would make this better? If they kiss. Jail. Leave. No. I actually, and this, I feel the same way about if you try and do anything between Remus and Lily. Just leave it alone. Leave it alone. If it ain't broken, don't fix it. Panda Lily, which is Pandora, and Lily, Pandora Lovegood being the mother of Luna Lovegood, and Lily obviously being Lily Evans, is quite a popular one that I'm not actually that mad at. If I'm gonna support James getting off with Regulus, I need to cut Lily some slack. You know? Another common one is Noble Flower, which is Narcissa Malfoy and Alice Fortescue. I've never actually read fanfic containing these two. Maybe I should, but it don't sit right with me. Quill Killer, another one. Rita Skeeter and Bellatrix Lestrange. I don't know. Again, I've never read a fic where they appear. I don't think I'd ever read one that's centered around it, but I wouldn't mind seeing them as like background main characters, because most of the time Bellatrix is insufferable. So maybe she just needs a bit of good old fashioned lesbianism to get her through. You know? I think the most popular fics that you're going to find people talking about on Marauders TikTok, it can get confusing because there's a lot of them. Heist Baby, Cadence of Part-Time Poets, All the Young Dudes are probably the three that I personally see the most advertised on my For You page in the form of gut-wrenching, soul-destroying edits. Dear Your Holiness is another one that I'm yet to read, but oh my god, it's Remus as a priest. Don't say we don't provide for you. Don't say the Marauders fandom does not provide for you, because you're telling me that I can get Fleabag X Marauders. Yeah. Yeah, actually, yeah, I'll take that. I'll also Crimson Rivers is a Marauders X Hunger Games AU. Again, don't say you're not being fed. Do not say the Marauders fandom is not feeding you breakfast, lunch, dinner, and dessert. Because how the hell are you going to sit there and say that you don't want to read that? But that is ridiculous and it is heartbreaking. Kill Your Darlings, Only the Brave, Black Mass over Highway 90. You signed up for this. Debt of Time are also ones that I see all over my For You page all the time. And I only have one thing to say, and that is the Debt of Time was a very weird experience that I would not put myself through again. All I have to say is that it's Remus X Sirius, young Sirius X young time traveling Hermione, Remus X young time traveling Hermione, Remus X Sirius X young time traveling Hermione, old Sirius X old Hermione. And that's all I have to say about that. And to be quite frank with you, it was a weird time in my life. You couldn't pay me enough to go back there. I think beyond the basic lore, the ships, the fics, the bullshit, there is a lot of headcanons that exist within the Marauders community, like James Potter being Desi, for example. Another common one is that Lily Evans is plus-sized. As I said before, JKR was a piece of shit. She would not know inclusivity if it hit her over the back of the fucking head. And so in order to reclaim this, a lot of Marauders fans have had to force inclusivity down people's throats in order to make it stick, and it has worked. The Marauders fandom are nothing if not inclusive. There's a lot of gender exploration with Sirius. There's a lot of queer expression in the Marauders community. There's a common understanding that Remus and James are both bi. Peter is probably ace and Sirius is gay. And usually I see Lily as straight, but she is, again, as I said, represented a lot of the time in fan art as plus sized. There's also a lot of plot headcanons. The main one that I think probably gets discussed on Marauders TikTok that might have people confused is the prank. The prank is actually canon. I need to make that so clear. But it's exaggerated in All the Young Dudes and then is used as a plot point. There's actually a fanfic. Actually, I'll get into that. So the prank is basically an event that happens in the boys' 5th year at Hogwarts. Snape, being Snape and being nosy, sees Remus going to the Whomping Willow because that is the tree that he goes inside in order to have his transformations because it leads to the Shrieking Shack. And it's Snape being nosy and being like, why does he keep going there? I want to go. And Sirius essentially saying, go on then, this is how you get in. And Snape does it and is basically essentially almost killed by Remus as he's transforming. There's actually a really cool fanfic, I believe called The Black Dog, where after the prank happens, Sirius and Remus have a massive falling out, and Remus decides to leave Hogwarts and never speak to Sirius again. And then 7 years later, he enters a pub called The Black Dog, where James and Sirius are working. I love second chance romance. There is also a common headcanon that after everything happens, after Lily and James die, Sirius is in Azkaban, etc., Mary McDonald obliviates herself in order to go and live a full life and not be haunted by the ghosts of her past and by what has happened during the Wizarding War. But yeah, that's the basics of the Marauders fandom. I'm not sure I have much more to say other than we're fucking delusional. Everything about the Marauders fandom is pure delusion. We are built on tears, pain, TikTok edits, and Spotify playlists. I have David Bowie coursing through my blood, and I actually don't know how to listen to David Bowie anymore without crying or being reminded of the Marauders. And I'd love to know if there are any Marauders fans out there that can listen to David Bowie, Jeff Buckley, the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, any 80s rock band in general, and not think of the Marauders. I can only encourage you to get involved in the Marauders fandom. It's a crazy fucking ride and it's an amazing place to be. But for all the pain and disgust and anger and anguish that it brings you, it also brings joy and love and greatness. So I couldn't recommend being a part of that fandom enough. I love it. But yeah, beyond all the crazy, painful, horrible, disgusting TikTok edits, there is actually a lot of joy and happiness, I swear. It is, you've got to really search for it, I'm not gonna lie. But it is there. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed me trying not to go insane as I try and explain as much as I can about the Marauders in half an hour. I feel like I still have 3 hours left of things to say, but that is it in its most basic form. I am probably gonna start making a lot more YouTube videos, so subscribe, I guess. Like, hit that subscribe button, comment down below your favorite color and your favorite piece of fruit, and, yeah, sorry, I don't know what I'm doing. Yeah, I wanna start making a lot more book content and just talking about pop culture and things that I love and things that piss me off. If you have come from TikTok, thank you. If you haven't, hi, I'm Grace. I like to talk a lot. I also like to read a lot and I like to talk about things that I read. So if you want to hear me yap and yap and yap and yap about love, social media, heartbreak, books, pop culture, and fucking things that piss me off, then stick around. Mwah.